I do not think words can express how wonderful it is to be together here again as a congregational family, and having opened our doors wider through the virtual world to welcome also those beyond this space who are here to celebrate with us in spirit, certainly in emotional presence. Our service begins on page 1 of your service booklet, or if you're online, if you've downloaded the PDF, you can have that open along with us. Opening the heart. At the year's turn in the days between, we step away from what we know into the spaces we cannot yet name. Slowly the edges begin to yield, the hard places soften, the gate to forgiveness opens. The Jewish New Year begins in darkness. We are the light. In Leviticus, the first day of the first fall month is to be a Shabbaton, an absolute halt, and a Mikra Kodesh, a sacred assembly. It is also Zichron Teruah, a memorial of shofar blowing. As the first day of a Jewish month, this assembly of the shofar always begins in the darkness of a new moon. Neither faith nor human effort are needed for the glimmer of a new moon to grow into brilliance. The full moon shone long before humanity appeared and will outlast all of us. Yet even when the night is dark, we are not defeated. Our minds, our hands, our culture work together to bring time to eternity, light to darkness, meaning to moments. When the world is dark, as the Jewish New Year begins, we are the light. Tik'u v'chodesh shofar, ba'kese leyom chagenu. Please say with me, sound the shofar on the new moon and on the full moon for the day of our celebration. Tekiah. Shevarim. Teruah. Tekiah. Head of the year. The moon is dark tonight, a new moon for a new year. It is hollow and hungers to be full. It is the black zero of beginning. Now you must void yourself of injuries, insults, incursions. Go with empty hands to those you have hurt and make amends. It is not too late. It is early and about to grow. Now is the time to do what you know you must and have feared to begin. Your face is dark too as you turn inward to face yourself, the hidden twin of all you must grow to be. Forgive the dead year. Forgive yourself. What will be wants to push through your fingers. The light you seek hides in your belly. The light you crave longs to stream from your eyes. You are the moon that will wax in new goodness. Tekiah.
In nature, beginning again is easy. Leaves fall and become soil in which roots grow deeper and stronger. Spring brings the renewal of buds, blooms, and babies. The world is always changing, yet the rhythms stay similar. It is harder for us to begin again. We remember what came before, and we fear what may yet to be. It feels easier to continue a tradition than to change it. It is certainly easier to live unconsciously, to avoid self-examination, to refuse to change. Yet to do better, to be better, to live and to love better, we must be willing to ask difficult questions and face challenging answers. We must be willing to begin again.
We are not endeavoring to change the future, but to free the present. We are not forging fetters for our children, but we are breaking down those our fathers made for us. We are the advocates of inquiry, of investigation, and thought. This of itself is an admission that we are not perfectly satisfied with our conclusions. Philosophy has not the egotism of faith. While superstition builds walls and creates obstructions, science opens up the highways of thought. We do not pretend to have circumnavigated everything and to have solved all difficulties, but we do believe that it is better to love men than to fear gods, that it is grander and nobler to think and investigate for yourself than to repeat a creed.
Wisdom is an awesome power. Through the force of their reasoning minds, human beings have tamed the energy of the sun, surpassed the birds in their reach for the heavens, multiplied the elephant's strength 1,000,000-fold. And through the miracle of language, we learn the thoughts, hopes, and dreams of ancient civilizations and transmit our knowledge to yet unborn generations. In our time, the explosion of knowledge has confirmed the truth that wisdom is larger than any one text, broader than one people's experience. Torah is not a thing, but a process. The scroll is but a symbol of the dynamic unfolding of truth, which began when the first question was asked and will continue until the last human being breathes her last. We honor our symbol of truth, that we may honor every man and woman who has ever brought truth to light.
I invite us to rise as we remove our Torah scroll from the ark. והאדם ידע את חווה אשתו, וטהר ותלד את קין, ותאמר קניתי איש את יהווה, ותוסף ללדת את אחיו ואת הבל, ויהי הבל רועה צאן, וקין היה עובד אדמה, ויהי מקץ ימים, ויבא קין מפרי האדמה מנחה ליהווה. והבל הביא גם הוא מבכורות צאנו ומחלבתם, וישע יהווה אל הבל ואל מנחתו, ואל קין ואל מנחתו לא שעה. וייחר לקין מאוד, ויפלו פניו, ויאמר יהווה אל קין, למה חרה לך, ולמה נפלו פניך? הלא אם תיטיב שאת, ואם לא תיטיב לפתח חטאת חובץ, ועליך תשוקתו, ואתה תמשול בו. ויאמר קין אל הבל אחיו, ויהי בהיותם בשדה, ויקום קין אל הבל אחיו, ויהרגהו. ויאמר יהווה אל קין, הבל אחיך? ויאמר, לא ידעתי, השומר אחי אנוכי? ויאמר, מה עשית? כל דמי אחיך צועקים אלי מן האדמה. And the English translation of Genesis 4, not 3. The man knew Eve, his wife. She conceived and gave birth to Cain and said, I have gotten a man with Yahweh's help. Again she gave birth to Cain's brother Abel. Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain a tiller of the ground. As time passed, Cain brought an offering to Yahweh from the fruit of the ground. Abel also brought some of the firstborn of his flock and of its fat. Yahweh respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. Cain was very angry, and the expression on his face fell. Yahweh said to Cain, why are you angry? Why has the expression of your face fallen? If you do well, won't it be lifted up? If you do not do well, sin crouches at the door. Its desire is for you, but you may rule over it. Cain said to Abel, his brother, let's go into the field. While they were in the field, Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. Yahweh said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? Yahweh said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. Jewish mythology is full of origin stories. Why there are day and night, why we fear snakes, why we feel naked, why we die. Adam and Eve are told that if they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they will surely die. They are not told that the first person to die would be murdered. Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialist play, No Exit, imagined that hell was being stuck with other people. In fact, life is other people, negotiating the bridges between me and we. The conflict between Cain and Abel in Genesis is framed as a social clash between nomadic pastoralism and settled agriculture, shepherds and farmers, meat and vegetables. We know from the musical Oklahoma that the cowman and the farmer should be friends, but we know from history that they are not. Cattle graze where crops grow. Cain and Abel is also a story of conflict between siblings for the approval of a cosmic parent, and a warning of the risks of favoring one over the other. The story dramatizes the internal conflict of temptation. Angry instincts of jealousy and revenge battle with the better angels of our nature. Cain and Abel is the dilemma of freedom. The first episode after leaving the garden, aside from giving birth, ends up in the first murder and the first denial of responsibility. Am I my brother's keeper? Echoes through human culture as the refuge of the bystander, even as it was articulated by literature's first perpetrator. We would like to imagine that the ground, the universe, cosmic order will call out for justice. The truth is that both justice and injustice come from human minds and human hands, action or inaction in the face of impending tragedy. What can we do to answer the cry of our siblings' blood from the earth? The first step is to accept responsibility. We are our siblings' keepers, after death, but especially before it, here and now, today and tomorrow. I invite you to please rise as we return our Torah scroll to the Ark.
Old rituals are comforting. They are familiar and predictable. They are safe and secure. They relieve us of the pain of continuous surprise. They reflect the mood of stability and eternity. Old rituals help us relax because they require no more exertion than the effort of repetition. But endless repetition is dull, just as people without imagination are boring. Imitation and conformity are necessary for survival. They are not enough for happiness. Successful people are creative people. They refuse to accept the world as fixed. They refuse to believe that life offers only one script for living. They see old things and imagine new ways of putting them together. They see new things and fancy old settings which they will transform. They gaze at one scene and envision 100 ways to describe it. They experience one life and imagine 1,000 ways to live it.
Avinu Malkeinu, Karu Voltinu, Asino Chelkeinu, Karkanu Barolinu, Asino Chelkeinu, Vito Valinu,
From Poems of the Journey's End. "The path is so lovely," said the boy. "The path is so hard," said the lad. "The path is so long," said the man. The grandfather sat on the side of the path to rest. Sunset paints his gray head gold and red. The grass glows at his feet in the evening dew. Above him, the day's last bird sings. Will you remember how lovely, how hard, how long was the path? You said, day chases day and night, night. In your heart, you said, now the time has come. You see evenings and mornings visit your window, and you say, there is nothing new under the sun. Now, with the days, you have whitened and aged, your days numbered and tenfold dearer, and you know every day is the last under the sun, and you know every day is new under the sun.
Let us ask ourselves hard questions, for this is the time for truth. How much time did we waste in the year that is now gone? Did we fill our days with life, or were they dull and empty? Was there love inside our home, or was the affectionate word left unsaid? Was there a real companionship with our children, or was there a living together and a growing apart? Were we a help to our mates, or did we take them for granted? How was it with our friends? Were we there when they needed us or not? The kind deed, did we perform it or postpone it? The unnecessary jibe, did we say it or hold it in? Did we live by false values? Did we deceive others? Did we deceive ourselves? Were we sensitive to the rights and feelings of those who worked with us? Did we acquire only possessions, or did we acquire new insights as well? Did we fear what the crowd would say and keep quiet when we should have spoken? Did we mind only our own business, or did we feel the heartbreak of others? Did we live right? And if not, then have we learned, and will we change?
Sisu et Yerushalayim giluva, giluva kol ohaveh hakol ohaveh. Sisu et Yerushalayim
Jewish experience teaches the need for new beginnings. Our calendar revolves through cycles of 7 days, new and full moons, the turning and returning of seasons. We remember anniversaries of deaths, moments in our mythical and real history, literary legends as if we too had been slaves in Egypt. Some recite the same prayers, read the same Torah passages, study the same laws again and again to ensure that new beginnings are never beginnings anew. Others accept that change is a part of every living thing, including traditions and cultures.
We have built and rebuilt Jewish life many times, from the destruction of kingdoms and temples to expulsion and wandering to new homes. We brought with us our languages, our holidays, our ideas, and our memories. Each new beginning was recreation, adapting that was old to someplace new. Even today, as individuals, families, and communities, we choose from our inheritance that which most inspires and moves us. New beginnings do not start from nothing. We begin again by looking backward while living forward.
We create from our inheritance. Creativity builds on what came before, poetry on poets past, performances on earlier shows, artists on older images. This chain of creativity stretches back before recorded history and stretches forward into the dim future of our tomorrows. As with creativity, our lives and our families build on what came before. Today's parents learning from their parents who learned from theirs. This chain of love stretches back beyond recollection and stretches forward beyond knowing. we joyously continue the chains of love and life.
Kaddish, beauty of the world. Praise the world, praise its fullness, and its longing, its beauty and its grief. Praise stone and fire, lilac and river, and the solitary bird at the window.
Praise the moment when the whole bursts through pain, and the moment when the whole bursts forth in joy. Praise the dying beauty with all your breath, and praising, see the beauty of the world is your own.
We learn little from spoken rules and written advice. Words can inspire us, but rarely do they transform our lives. We learn from people, from the living example of living teachers. A father's integrity, a mother's warm encouragement, a famous leader's determination. People enter our lives and guide us by what they do, not by what they say. They embody the ideal and make it real enough for us to understand. Memory keeps alive the example of great men and women who taught us through action. It also preserves behavior of more modest guides who touched our lives in simpler ways.
We, too, shall be examples in a future world that we shall never visit. We are teaching others for a tomorrow that is beyond our grasp. Our actions will move others long after our words are forgotten. We are all the children of love. We are all the heirs of generous hope. Parents and peers, family and friends are forever joined to us by bonds of affection and mutual experience. The pain of separation never completely disappears, nor does the fond memory of their lives. We are constantly with us, even when we do not think of them. Their influence brings us here today, that we may honor them by sharing our memories silently as a community of caring friends.
Could I ask, if you're comfortable doing so, that you please rise for a moment at this time? It has been 3 years since we gathered in these numbers, in this space, for this purpose. In those 3 years, we know the world and its people have faced much loss and pain and grief, from war and violence, from flood and storm, from pestilence and plague and pandemic. We who survive pause in these moments of celebration to reflect on the power of memory and to feel the love for those whom we love, who are not with us to celebrate this momentous turning of our lives into a new page in the Jewish years and also a new page in our lives. And so I invite us to pause for a moment of silent tribute in memory of our loved ones, in reflection on the passage of time, and in sympathy for those who still feel the pain of loss. Let us pause. In Jewish life, we say, Zecher Tzadikim Livracha, the memory of good people blesses us. Please be seated as these words are sung. Have you ever tried to list the 10 Commandments from memory? It's harder than all 7 dwarves. Some of these commandments are easier to remember. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, honor your parents, thou shalt not bear false witness or don't lie. These are universal rules that you do not need a Moses to discover. 2 of the commandments have very little to do with ethics. To worship one God alone, and thou shalt not take its name in vain. You can be a good person with many gods, one God, or no gods at all. There are 2 ritual commandments. Thou shalt not worship idols, and thou shalt observe Shabbat. And there is the unenforceable rule about jealousy. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property or spouse or livestock. It may be the basis of capitalism, but don't tell Jeff Bezos. What's left? Number 10, the one most people forget, the one I haven't mentioned yet. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Somehow that one gets forgotten. One of those 10 commandments is easy to remember, except we remember it wrong because of a bad translation. Thou shalt not kill in Hebrew is lo tirtzach, literally, you will not murder. What is the difference between thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not murder? Murder is illegal killing. The Torah itself describes cases of unintentional manslaughter. For example, if you were chopping wood and the axe head slipped off its handle and flew through the air and hit someone and killed them, that would not count as murder, unintentional. Not murder. The Torah accepts a legal death penalty as justice for murder, but also the penalty for heresy as mundane as gathering sticks on Shabbat. Thou shalt observe Shabbat or else. There is warfare and self-defense and the defense of others threatened by a potential murderer. Believe it or not, the rabbis later extended that definition of a rodef, a pursuer trying to kill someone else, to a fetus that threatens its mother's life. Even during the process of birth, that pursuer could be terminated to save the mother. Thou shalt not kill is absolute pacifism. Thou shalt not murder, to adapt sociologist Max Weber, means the political entity, the state, has a legal monopoly on violence. Now, why talk about violence on Rosh Hashanah? This high holidays, we will explore morality, how we decide right from wrong, how we live with other people without knowing whether one of them could turn dangerous and break Weber's monopoly on us. We face a crisis in humanist faith, a moral crisis, not just whether people are moral enough, but whether human morality itself is enough for our survival. Our emotions are at the breaking point. Over the past few years, the anger, stress, the tension and trauma have become a toxic brew for increased conflict. How to be good so we can live together is an issue as old as human life itself. 2,000 years ago, in the midst of discussions about travel boundaries for Jewish holidays, this debate was recorded. For 2.5 years, the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai argued. One said that it was better that humanity was actually created, and the other said it would have been better for humanity to not have been created. They voted and determined it would have been better not to have been created. But now that we are created, we should study our past deeds or consider our future actions. The results of that debate, either way, would not change reality. No takebacks on creation. Reality is what it is, whether we like it or not. Therefore, it is all the more important to act in response to that reality rather than deny it. If the world is not just, if there is no cosmic guarantee the righteous will be rewarded and the wicked punished in this life or the next, wishing will not make it so. We do not want to live in a world where children do Alice incident training, a world where we wonder what the next shocking news headline will be. But we are not gifted with the world we want, nor with the raw material of human nature we would prefer. We do not want to return to a mythical innocence and ignorance of a Garden of Eden. Yet Genesis demonstrates a profound insight in the flow of its narrative. The very next story in the Jewish library, after knowledge and with a society of just 4 people, describes a rivalry over limited resources of cosmic fortune and violence from social conflict. In the early years of the Enlightenment, we had a secular faith that humanity could be perfected, that with proper social organization and education, the human blank slate would be whatever we told it to be. We should have known better. The human and the Jewish experience of the bloody 20th century disabused us of that illusion. We thought in 1903 to 1906 that the Russian pogroms were terrible, with a few thousand Jews murdered, or the White Army pogroms of fighting Bolsheviks in 1919 that killed tens of thousands. We, in 2022, we know what happened after that. And we have to grapple with the reality that we live in a world where people have done and can do terrible, terrible things. The reports yet to come from liberated Ukraine will be one more boulder on the scale of judgment. After centuries of persecution, pogroms, exile, and suffering, a Yiddish saying evolved. Es ist schwer zu sein a Yid. It is hard to be a Jew. It is hard to live with joy, to celebrate life, to hope for the future, knowing what you know about people out there and what they can do. Isn't that how everyone, not just Jews, feels these days? How can we go out and go to school and travel and live? The last 2 years we were afraid of a virus. Now we are afraid of each other. And masks and vaccines do no good. Humanists and humanistic Jews do not believe that an all-powerful personality or guardian angel is watching over us every minute of every day. We strongly doubt that karma will work it all out, or that a cosmic reward awaits that will make it all better. Our focus on this life does make this life more meaningful. The famous atheist activist and environmental biologist Richard Dawkins was once asked, "If you don't believe in an afterlife, how can you get up in the morning?" Dawkins' response was, "That's why I get up in the morning. I only have so many mornings, and I want to make the most of every single one to learn and to experience life." Humanistic Rabbi Greg Epstein once said that humanists believe in life before death. However, if this is the only life we know for sure, and we could reasonably expect another 30, 40, 50, or more years, then we are that much more reluctant to risk it. If the only experience of our loved ones will be in this life, we are even more afraid to lose them. If our secular and this worldly approach to this one precious life makes us cautious, so too can the Jewish experience. There was always a disconnect between official Jewish theology and lived Jewish history. We were supposed to be the chosen people, the most favored nation of the one cosmic God, and yet we lost, and we suffered, and we were exiled. To some, it made more sense to assume God was just and to blame ourselves as sinners being punished. The ultra-Orthodox of today are in some ways even more fanatically pious and strict than their grandparents were before the Holocaust because of that thinking. Yet there are other Jews who decided that the world was more farce than tragedy, and that it was better to laugh than to cry. Think of Tevye's response in the Sholem Aleichem stories or in Fiddler on the Roof. If this is what it's like being the chosen people, once in a while, choose someone else. Jewish humor, even the sardonic and the cynical, is also a survival strategy. Jewish history has been so long and so varied that we've seen just about everything. In the Middle Ages, it was generally easier to be a Jew under Islam than under either the Catholic or Orthodox Christian churches. Today, for all of our challenges, Jews are freer and safer in the Christian and post-Christian West than in most parts of the Muslim world. And most Jews native to Muslim lands were persecuted into exile and now live in Israel, in Europe, or North America. For much of our diaspora existence, the organized society out there could persecute or expel us. It was the unusual individual who might intervene to rescue us. Today, we generally trust the organized society of laws to direct their monopoly of violence to protect us and to defend us. It is the unusual individual who might target us. We are very, very deeply invested in legal professions as judges and lawyers and their clients. Jews tend to support gun control and hired professional security or police rather than encourage congregant open carry. But the last few years, after armed attacks in Pittsburgh and Poway, California, and Jersey City, New Jersey, and Monsey, New York, and Colleyville, Texas, well, it begins to feel like unusual individuals are more motivated these days. And yet, with all that history and culture and tragedy and trauma past and present, I am here. You are here. Children are born. People fall in love and get married. The drop-off area at the airport is still called Kiss and Fly. We see strangers every day in grocery stores and restaurants. We drive next to them in traffic jams. They treat us in doctors' offices. They serve us food in restaurants. They walk next to us on the sidewalk. Are we stupid? Are we gullible? Are we asking for it? Or are we being brave to simply live our lives? Some of you might have seen the documentary Murder Ball about the United States wheelchair rugby team. The wheelchair rugby team is made up of many team members who had been high-level athletes before a severe spinal injury. And there's a very touching scene where one of these athletes visits a newly injured young man who is still in the first month after realizing what his future will be. But when he sees the armored chariot that this wheelchair rugby athlete uses, his eyes begin to light up a bit. And the athlete says to this newly injured teenager, "It's okay to feel bad about yourself and to hate the world in the first month, in the first 6 weeks, in the first 2 months. And then you have to figure out, what do I do now? How do I live the rest of my life?" You see, living a life in a wheelchair is not heroic, it's living a life. Because living your life is not heroic, it is what people do. The scale weighing humanity does not crash over and collapse. It is better that we exist than that we do not. Early in my tenure at Kol Hadash, I had a member ask me, "Can you be a humanist if you don't like people?" The truth is that humanity is almost infinitely diverse. We all know kind people, generous people, protective people, loving people. And people together do wonderful things to help our fellow humans in small ways and on a global scale. We have all experienced the best of human nature, even as we are aware of the worst. The Yiddish term mensch simply means person, but it is understood to be the best kind of person one can imagine. If there is evil in the world, there are also mention. So how do we make more mention? Can our morality address this crisis of humanist faith in humanity's potential? Can we convince people to balance their own well-being with that of others, to affirm freedom while also encouraging responsibility? Is our morality without commandments and commanders fit for the task? That is what we explore through this high holiday season, turning tomorrow to our responsibilities to each other. Yet we have not answered the key issue with which we began. Our morality, our choices, and our actions matter nothing if we are not alive to exercise them. What good are liberty and the pursuit of happiness if we do not have life? I grew up in a humanistic Jewish congregation, and my bar mitzvah project was a study of Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat who saved thousands of Jews during the Holocaust. My Hebrew reading was a passage from rabbinic literature that said, "Whoever saves a life, it is as if they have saved an entire world." You do not need the 10 Commandments to know that murder is wrong and that stopping murder is right. If we can stop murder and do not act, if we allow a pursuer to kill when we could stop them or reduce their firepower or raise a red warning flag, then our morality has failed precisely in the moment of crisis. At the same time, we let those who would threaten us win if we surrender our freedom to act, to move, to live as we want to live. And so we return to public life. We come together, we open our doors, and we sing our shared truths, because, in the words of Jewish spiritual resistance from 1939, "Wir wollen sie überleben," we will outlive them. Not just that we will survive, but we will thrive. We will live our best lives. We will live more fully and more joyfully than they can imagine. We will outlive them. In the real world, reality is not destiny. What is today does not have to be what will be tomorrow. And what was is not what is. Celebrating the Jewish New Year is a statement of hope. We do not only look backward to a year just concluded, we look forward to the future we create together. And we want more than just a year of life. We want a Shana Tova Umituka, a good year and a sweet year, sweetened with the joy of living our best lives and living them together. The last word has not been spoken. The last sentence has not been written. The final verdict is not in. It is never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future, to offer remorse, to ask and give forgiveness. It is never too late to start over again, to feel again, to love again, to hope again. Shana Tova, I invite you to wish a Shana Tova to the people near you.